Good idea.
Good morning.
William Sutler. Would you like to test your mic?
Test my mic, test my mic, test my mic.
You're okay.
What are the three things?
I'm sorry. Wait, start the morning, Don Coram. Good morning. Welcome to Forum. We're excited about being back. I mean, we needed to take that little hiatus, but evidently it seemed to be necessary, and maybe this will work better for us now. As you remember, those of you who've been here before, and I've seen a whole bunch of new faces, currently there are 3 facilitators for Forum. Myself, I'm Judy Ann Files, Barbara Bynum, and Kathy Hebers. And Steve Matheny is our very gracious CMU host. And he helps us with all kinds of things, including, of course, CMU allowing us to use this amazing facility. We meet every Wednesday morning from 8 to 9 with different programs that are worthwhile for our community. Stephen Woody from the city of Montrose does videotape all of our sessions.
William.
I'm sorry.
He doesn't do it.
Of all people, why do I do that? Sorry. William Woody. Stephen Woody just hangs around sometimes with us at CMU meetings. Anyway, he records it, so if you ever want to see one of our presentations, they're on the City of Montrose website, and it's a YouTube channel you can get into too. If you're not on our email list, so you get the notifications each week telling you what the next upcoming program is going to be, please let one of the 3 of us know, and we'll put you on that email list. That also, when you get that each week, it has the link to the YouTube channel that takes you to Forum at Montrose. So, with all of that over with, I probably don't need to introduce most of you to Don Coram. Don's been around a while.
Bring that up.
But you're not one of my past students.
That's of course, dude.
Don has served as our Colorado Senator since 2017, but before that, he served in the House of Representatives for essentially our same area here in regional southwestern Colorado. I thought it was interesting when I was reading about Don, how big his district is. I don't know how many counties this is. Archuleta, Dolores, La Plata, Montezuma, Montrose, Ouray, San Juan, and San Miguel counties, as well as the entire southern Ute Indian Reservation. So that's a huge part of the state of Colorado. I'm sure it's far bigger than most of the other 34.
Well, actually, there's 4 senators, all happen to be Republicans, but they represent 78% of the land mass of Colorado. So the 4 corners of Colorado, 4 senators represent 78%. So when you talk about legislation, it's a political colleges.
So you're ready. Take it away, Mr.
Yeah.
Coram.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here, and I just want to clarify one thing, Will. I did recognize you as being Will Woody, but you wouldn't be here without Steve Woody. It's a great morning. It's been a great week. We've had a great couple of weeks. We've had something that we haven't seen around here in a while called snow. And, water is always on our minds. Everything we do revolves around water. Colorado is the lifeblood of 18 states and plus Mexico for water. We've all heard about the problems going on with the Colorado River, the power pool, the possibility of curtailing water. I got some good news. It's not a cycle breaker, but we're in a weather pattern right now that we absolutely love. And I'm going to give you, this is Snowtail as of yesterday. I was too lazy to look at it this morning. But Colorado right now is 118.66% of median average. And I think it's really good because our normal snow months are April, May. But, it's actually much better on the western slope, which is more important. The Gunnison Basin is at 150% as of yesterday. Colorado, Upper Colorado, 126. The Platte is down a little bit. The only one in the state that is short is basically the Arkansas, and the Rio Grande is about 100%. Arkansas is like 90-some. But better news, Utah, which helps us feed Lake Powell, Lake Mead, is at 137% average for the state. Wyoming is very similar to Colorado, but the eastern pattern of Wyoming is drier, as we are in Colorado, but they're 118%. So those areas that feed Lake Powell, Lake Mead are in the 130, 140%. The good news, California and Nevada, the average is 157%. So I think that's great news. We'll start out with we have hope, and that's exactly what we need to do. We need to work hard to work together with members of the state of Colorado, the counties, and other states to manage our water. And frankly, we haven't done that well. I think we can do a lot better. California right now they've agreed to curtail their water use. Since the 1920s, since the reservoirs were built, Lake Powell, they've taken an average of 1 million acre-feet more than their allocation. We are required to give about 7.5 million acre-feet per year. Our average is about 1 million over that. But we didn't get to bank it because California, Arizona, and Nevada used that pool like it was endless. And if you fly over Lake Mead, you see that white bath plug ring out there. Hopefully we'll get that filled back up. It's not gonna happen this year, but if we can get another year or two like this, we'll do it. Now I know you came here to talk about a session, last year's session. Last year was my 11th year in session. I've served 6 years in the House and 5 years in the Senate. This is my final year in the Senate. As you recall, we had a thing that I actually served on 10 years ago called Congressional Redistricting, where the census comes in and we reapportion the representatives and senators. So what happened this year, the legislature did not do it. Every year the legislature did it. It ended up in court, and the courts ended up drawing the maps. So we passed an initiative to let private people do it, for Republicans, for Democrats, for unaffiliated, and they did both sides. And frankly, I think they got tired because it's a hard job. And frankly, I'm disappointed that the Western Colorado got treated like it did at the State House. We actually lose one member from the General Assembly from the Western Slope. And there's a possibility that you could lose more than that. Because my old district, which you are sitting in right now, Senate District 6, which is now Senate District 5, Senate District 6, which encompasses everything west of 6000 Road in Montrose County, plus Uray, San Miguel, Dolores, Montezuma, San Juan, and Archuleta. That is now in with the San Luis Valley. So Cleve Simpson, who is absolutely a wonderful guy. I think he's a star. He's a San Luis Valley boy, grew up in Alamosa, worked around the world in coal mines, surface coal mines, but he's a rancher and farmer. He and his dad still run several hundred head of cattle. He was the president of Adams State University, the president of Rio Grande Water, and I really like him because I consider myself a moderate, and I do not apologize for that. But I'm going to tell you, Cleve Simpson is every bit as moderate as I am. I was very pleased with him like the first week of session, maybe the second week. One of my best friends, we'll call the name out, is Sonnenberg. Everybody knows Sonnenberg and I go back 16, 18 years actually. I instantly disliked him just to save time. But he's one of my real friends there, and we rely on each other a lot. And there was a bill changing, taking the junior college names out of the junior college. Well, Sonnenberg lives in Sterling, in Northeastern. The president of the college said, yes, we like it, but he never ran it by the community. And the community said, no, we want to stay as Northeastern. And so Jerry used his 14 years of experience in the legislature, and he's going to hammer on this young man. And this young man's about the size of JD, I gotta tell you right. He's not a young man, he's a big guy. And anyway, Jerry was gonna, we're gonna do this, and he just said, no, we're not. It might change in the House, but it's not changing in the Senate. Because we asked them, and they didn't come forward. And you can't complain late in the game. I truly admired that. He didn't buckle. And I've seen several situations that he hasn't come forward. The other senator that you will have starting in 23 will be Bob Rankin. Bob Rankin is from Carbondale. He's I think he was vice president of Ford Aerospace. He's not that bright, but he's a really good guy. He sure serves on the Joint Budget Committee. And that is a vital situation for rural Colorado. And it's been a while since we've had a member on the JBC. So Bob is an outstanding individual, and I am leaving you in good hands. That's just all I want to tell you. They will do well. Last year, a little bit confusing, but actually went pretty well. Not any really major disagreements. Probably the biggest disagreement we had was the farm labor bill. And it passed, it's taking effect. And it's $15 an hour plus overtime. And I've had some of my farmers tell me that they have guys that are actually moving to Nebraska. One gentleman that I have that I know very well, a big farmer out in Yuma County, his lead guy makes $75,000 a year as a farmhand. Pays him $30 an hour. Doesn't pay him overtime, but he works a lot of hours. So they're moving on to other locations. He said we're losing some hands. So I don't know what the long-term effect is, but it's there. This year, we really don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. This is an election year. We have extreme on both sides, more extremes on the left than is the right. But I don't know, because the polling that some of the things that they're trying to promote aren't in their favor. So we'll wait and see if policy or politics wins out. I'm working on several bills. I've averaged, we run about 700 bills a year average in the state of Colorado. My average going into last year, and I slacked a little bit last year, I got to admit, but my average is I've been the prime sponsor of 42 bills a year for 10 years. And I think I only get 34 for 10. But I've done that because I've had the ability to work across the aisle. And I think that's the most important. I was actually just reading an article last night that came out in the Denver Post on Sunday that talked about Don Coram was one guy in the General Assembly that is respect for both sides of the aisle. And I'm going to tell you, respect is not given. It has to be earned. And if you're not willing to reach out and talk to someone that has a different political persuasion than you do, and just pound your fist and say, this is how it is not going to work. Now, I can actually prove that to you. Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. We are so polarized and so divided with no intentions at this time of changing that. I don't see leadership of either side willing to make that move to reach across. Diana's always talking, and that's my wife Diana, anybody here knows her, but she's talking about when Ronald Reagan was shot. And Tip O'Neill spent the night at his bedside praying. We don't have that today. And I think Colorado has done a much better job of doing that. I've been criticized because I have too many Democrat friends. And the other side, Jenny Arndt, who's a friend of mine, and she's the mayor of Fort Collins right now, but she was in the House, and she lost her ag chairmanship because she was too friendly with the Democrat, or with the Republicans. And her response was, hey dude, the Republicans are the one that know about ag. Why don't I want to be friends with them? So I think, I think we have some hope. Leroy Garcia is the president of the Senate. Leroy and I have been friends for a long time. I served in the House of Representatives with him. He went to the Senate, and he's one of the young guys that I wish he had just a little more spine at times, but he's playing the politics, and I understand that. But he's a good friend. Diana and I took him to dinner on his birthday. We were at the state fair, and took him to dinner on his birthday a year ago. We didn't make it over last year. We had Diana had some health concerns, so we didn't make it. Working together. And if you look at numbers right now in the Colorado General Assembly, you don't have to be very smart to figure things out if you know simple math. And the math is 33, 18, and 1. It takes 33 votes to pass anything out in the House of Representatives. That body is controlled 41-24 by the Democrats. It takes 18 votes in the Senate. That body is at 15-20. And so what you can do is you have to work on those that you can talk to and understand. And I've had a lot of them tell me, yeah, I'd like to do this, but I just don't have the courage. We did something last year that I don't think there's anybody in the building that remembers ever happening, and that's a governor's appointment to a board of commission. And what happens, the governor appoints them, usually during the interim, June, July, August, September. They serve on this committee, and then they come before the Senate Committee of Reference for approval. They get that, they go to the full Senate for confirmation. And we had a situation working in southeast Colorado on water. Groundwater. And there's an investment group, I believe they're out of New York, I'm not sure exactly, New York with ties to Nebraska. But they are doing wells, one right after another, in the Southern High Plains. And the Southern High Plains is part of the Ogallala, that's hard to say, Ogallala Aquifer. And it is depleted. But this groundwater commission is just wholesaling these permits out to these groups, this group, and without any regard to the aquifer or the effect that it's having on other users. So they granted 61 wells at 50 gallons per minute, 24 hours a day, 365. That's a lot of water in a shrinking aquifer. And so this gentleman came forward for confirmation, and so I asked him about it. I said, what's your opinion on giving this, just wholesaling these out? And I said, and by the way, you violated statute because you had protests, and the protests were never heard. The hearings were denied. Matter of fact, one gentleman, former Democrat from southeast Colorado, filed all these protests. It ended up that the court down there sentenced him to 90 days in jail for filing objections to permits, saying he has no standing. Colorado statute says water belongs to the people of Colorado. You do never own that water. You only have a right to use. So I asked the gentleman at this time, I said, what's your opinion on this? And he said, well, if they got the $100 to file for the permit, they get the water. Thank you very much. So I took my case before the Senate floor, and I told 8 Democrats, 8 of the 20 Democrats voted with me to deny that confirmation. And I have chastised them several times that we are not doing our job. The year before, we had a little dust up over some appointments, and language got used that I guess you're not supposed to use in that building. But that particular time, I think there were 51 appointments before the Senate. 2 of those appointments lived east of I-25. One lived in Parker, which is 7 miles, and one lived in Brighton, which is 15. The whole Eastern Plains was ignored. We had a situation on state land board. Where are you at? There you are, state land board. We had appointments to state land board last year, and it came out that there was no one west of Breckenridge, no one north of I-25, no one south of 550 or Highway 50. And so I put an amendment on that I know the governor did not want to sign, but he did, and requiring geographic locations. So, and we've done the same thing with broadband. That requires geographic locations, and what was happening, and it's perfectly legal. The governor was taking these boards and commissions, and most of the boards say, usually they're 11-member boards, no more than 6 from the one party. So what was happening? 6 Democrats were being appointed, 5 unaffiliated. They may have been, and has been, a registered Democrat as little as 30 days prior, and 1 Republican, without geographic diversity. So we've changed that to a minimum of 3, a minimum from each major party, must be registered for 1 year, a minimum of 3 from the unaffiliated that must also be registered with geographic diversity. And I'm actually doing a bill right now. One of the bills that I'm running is the restructure of the Colorado State Fair. Colorado State Fair is made up of 7 members from 1 from each congressional district, 2 from the city of County of Pueblo, and the Commission of Agriculture. So we're going to 8 congressional districts, so that changes everything. So I changed the bill to use agricultural districts. There's 4 agricultural districts. The Western Slope is 1 agricultural district right now. Northeastern Colorado, Denver, and San Luis, Southern Colorado. So the bill that was actually refinalized today says that, and it also in the thing says there's 2 from the Western Slope in the current statute. That's not necessary if we go to agricultural districts, because we are the Western Slope. So I put a caveat in the bill that says 1 must reside north of I-70 and 1 must come from south of I-70 with geographic diversity once again. And the Eastern Plains has totally been left out over the years. So this one says that that region must have 1 representative that resides east of Highway 287. 287 runs up to from like Lamar, Lyman, and then catches 87 and goes north up to Greeley. So it must be east of 87 and 287. So we guarantee that. Also says that that board must have 1 member of the 2 must be from agricultural production. The state fair is agriculture. Yet we have so many people over the years that have been appointed to the state fair that have no idea about agriculture. So just one of the things we're working on. I think President Garcia is going to sponsor that bill with me. But the bill that I'm working on, I've actually worked on for several years right now. School safety is always very important. Teen suicide, we run all these teen suicide bills, and we're gaining, but we're not winning. And we need to do that. So I'm working for a safe school program. I've done legislation that hardens the target in the classroom and all that. But the biggest target out there, if you want to do harm to children, are school buses. So school buses, one, it's hard to get drivers. And the safety factor. This bill I read a couple of years ago, Mr. Barnhill from Montrose came over and testified. Because you get, especially in rural Colorado, there's no communications. The radio system doesn't work. The cell phone doesn't work. So we're looking at putting devices in that they will have communications 24 hours. Mr. Barnhill said that they were taking a wrestling team to Fernley, Utah, up I think between Rangeley and Craig was involved in an accident, and no cell service and sub-zero weather. So I think this is huge. I think we will get that through. We had it up a couple of years ago. Went through 2 committees, basically without opposition, and then we had a thing come along called COVID. And COVID basically stopped everything. We lost 25% of our projected budget because of COVID. Since then, we have recovered. Last year was a pretty good year, and this year the budget is considerably higher. It's about $7 million more than last year, and that's not including the federal stimulus funds. So I think we're going to be able to do some things that, with one-time dollars and things like that, can actually make a difference. You know, education. We need to do a better job of working with our schools, our parents, our teachers, in providing quality education. I think it's important. We need to do that. I think one of the things that we're looking at this year, they tell me, is especially in rural Colorado, sometimes it's very difficult to get teachers. And I always said the only way we keep teachers in rural Colorado is buy them subscriptions to farmersonly.com. Because if you can't keep them here and marry them up, you're not going to get the young teachers to stay. So, but hopefully better pay in our education system and support that, giving the communities the opportunity to help do that. I had a friend, and this has been 15, 20 years ago, that was a superintendent down in New Mexico, and had trouble getting students. He taught on the reservation. And so he ended up, the district ended up building housing. And, you know, that's kind of, you got to have housing. I've actually talked to Habitat a little bit about that, of maybe working to help these young teachers move in and, you know, because it is expensive. You know, we got builders in there just out there. I dig it. But this is a very hot one. And so some of these first year, second year, third year teachers, the funds just aren't there for a single teacher to make it here. But we've got lots of legislation we're working on, but I don't know how much time I've used up because somebody took my phone away.
It's 8:30.
Huh?
It's 8:30.
8:30, okay.
Watch the clock.
I can watch the clock. Okay, but, you know, we can talk further legislation, we can talk questions you have about the session, whatever you have.
What's your choice? You willing to take questions?
Let's
do questions. Okay, if we do questions though, with our format, we need to use the mic. So I will come around to you. If you want to raise your hand, I'll bring you the mic.
Good morning, Senator. Just a question for you. Obviously, I'm new to your area, but coming from North Dakota. But one of the things I was quite shocked at is to learn that Colorado literally ranks 46 in the country when providing services for individuals with intellectual disabilities. For example, Maine, the #1 country, state in the country, pays about $11.40 per 100,000. Colorado is at just over $2 per 100,000. We rank bottom of the four corner states as well. But then we get all these mandates from the state, like we just recently got, that because they changed our non-medical transportation from the different department, we now have to go through all these policies, procedures, and get vehicle checks. And and vehicle checks are a good thing, don't get me wrong, but when we have to pay $300 a vehicle and we have a fleet of 60, that adds up. But they provide no funding for that. So we continually get mandates from the State Department without any support for that. At some point, you just can't afford to do it. And so at some point, the Agency of Powers, which is the 8th largest employer here in Montrose, what are you going to do with 500 families that we serve?
Well, thank you, John, and you know, you and I have talked about this, and I have brought that forward with, you know, I describe the General Assembly as 100 amateurs making professional decisions. And so I have brought that forward to some of the people in the House and the Senate that have those. And I think, as we said, this is a year that you know, we're going to have some good funding, one-time funding, and I just hope that we spend it on things like you're talking about, rather than treating a whole new program that we find out 2 or 3 years later we probably didn't need and we can't afford. So that is in the queue, and they will be reaching out to you.
Thank you.
I know that one too.
I'm next.
John,
Really, I think the real question we have today is how can we help you run for the Congressional 3rd District?
Well, that's a very simple answer. The papers have been filed and the official announcement will become on Friday.
Yeah, Senator, I really want to thank you for all the work you're doing in the Senate, reaching across the aisle and being effective even though you're in the minority. The question I have for you is our district court judges are running at about 130% of capacity, which is clogging up the system. And I think several years ago there was some type of initiative to try and get that resolved. What's the situation with that right now?
Well, that's a double-edged sword, because you're absolutely correct. It is a problem. But if we correct the problem, so what we can do is, and what we have done in the past, I have actually done this, run legislation to add another judge to the court system. The problem is that it puts the burden on the county. And without the state backfilling those costs, the counties can't afford it. So I think there's some things that we can do that we've tried to do on minor cases of keeping them out of the court system. But it is certainly a problem, but it's not just a state issue, it's a county issue. And these rural counties, frankly, don't have the resources to do that.
Yeah, John, what about doing something about enabling legislation to allow the county to make that choice whether they can afford it or not?
That's a possibility. But you've got an ex-county manager sitting right beside you, so.
You brought it up.
He brought it up. Ken, you've never been a coward with me. But yeah, I think that's certainly a possibility. We'll look at it. You know, we are in a situation that as you're entitled to file 5 bills. I said I averaged 42. So you have to get late bill status.
But usually we can do that, so I'd be glad to carry it forward, work with you on it. But I just don't want to put a burden on all the counties. Some of these counties just can't do it. I mean, they're in tough shape. But, you know, the crime situation is worse. The load is there. And let's go on farther with the counties. You've got a district attorneys, which once again the counties support. But the public defender is supported by the state, and they are much better funded than the district attorney's office. So yeah, there certainly needs to be some changes in the way the judiciary and corrections themselves.
That actually leads into my question. One of the things that smaller municipalities and medium municipalities are really dealing with right now is the skilled gaming or the spin and wins, because there are gray areas in legislation concerning what actually constitutes a gaming machine. And I know we've talked about this before. What hope is there of getting more clarity on that legislation, on defining what those limits are, so we can start eliminating some of these, because they're little hot pockets of crime and cesspools, quite honestly.
I understand that, and I've actually visited with the Deputy Attorney General. Kurt Morrison, when I got there, was the legislative liaison for Department of Transportation, and just an all-around great guy. Would actually like to move to Western Colorado, and he's the kind of guy we'd like to have. But we've talked about it, so yeah, it's probably one of the issues that will be coming out this year.
Thank you.
But it's nothing on the books right now that I'm aware of. When the Attorney General's office or needs to start trying to get someone to work on a piece of legislation, it usually gets done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Another question? Oh, we're a quiet group this morning.
Yes. She's waiting.
Thank you.
I have a son who works for the Parks and Wildlife Department. He is a regional habitat biologist. There's 4 in the state of Colorado, the habitat biologists divided into 4 sections. There's 17 people working in the marketing department. I was just wondering if you were aware of the difference between marketing and the actual development of habitat in the state.
I wasn't aware of the numbers, but I am aware that many of the agencies are top-heavy in office personnel. The governor's budget right now has a request for 750 new full-time employees in various departments, and I'm not sure that's going to fly.
Marketing doesn't need any more.
Yeah.
Okay, Don, tell us when Little Blue's gonna get finished. Let's get Highway 50 done.
Well, we're working on that bridge to Hawaii right now. I think at about the same time. Little Blue has been certainly a concern that we brought out early. We were concerned that, as I told Director Liu, you know, we told you what was going to happen. We're not going to tell you about it. We're not going to talk about it today, but we told you what was going to happen. And the fact is, the Little Blue is certainly way behind schedule. I do not know what it is on budget-wise, but it is certainly behind schedule. As an example, the section between the Arrowhead Road and back to Montrose, that was a 90-day fix. And it will be, I think it'll take 90 days next spring before when they start in April. I would be surprised if that's done by the end of June, that section alone. So it's been a disaster as far as I'm concerned. It's been very costly to this community. I talked to a lot of service people that work in Gunnison and Crested Butte, And the delays of getting through that, or either going around through Delta, Hotchkiss, across. I took the trip once. I was going to Colorado Springs, and I thought, well, I don't want to take 70 and come back down and go that way. So I will go the 92. I will never do it again as long as this construction project is on. It is dangerous. You've got people that have never been on a road like that. They're driving too fast, they're driving too slow, and it's flat dangerous. So I don't know. They tell me they're going to have it done by November. They didn't tell me what year.
Well, obviously, with the problems with I-70 also, it put a different type of traffic through Montrose, which made an issue. But I think in lots of ways, Montrose County was able to handle it. But areas like Hotchkiss, their main street has been devastated by all this new heavy traffic.
Absolutely, and you know, that's one reason that we tried to get the project delayed a year. Because with the Grizzly Creek fire, I don't think there was anybody on this side of the mountain that doubted that when those rain events came through, that road was going to be closed. And I truly feel that they would have been better off putting the project on hold for a year and coming in and getting it done without all the interruptions. But, hindsight's always right.
So totally changing gears. One of the things that I was reading about recently was the wolf reintroduction program, that with wolves naturally repopulating Colorado, how is that affecting the legislation about reintroducing wolves?
Hasn't changed anything. The program is still moving forward. So the wolves are coming, and they're here. You know, I have seen 4 in my life in this region, from Rico to Dallas to the Big Cimarron. They're here. So we did have our first recorded livestock kill a couple of weeks ago over in Jackson County, but a gentleman who was on the Parks and Wildlife Commission has a cabin at Grand Lake, and he said, I've seen him there for years. So, but you know, that was put together. That was the vote of the people brought that in. I think in Congressional District 3, that measure was approved by 2 counties. And it's a little troublesome to me when the Front Range says, this is what we're going to do, but we're going to do it in your backyard. I suggested in committee that we actually introduce them into the most expensive ranch in Colorado. I thought it would be the prime location, and that would be Highlands Ranch right off. But they're coming. The question is, are we going to have enough funds to cover the livestock? But more concerned, I'm concerned about the livestock deaths, but I'm concerned about the high data. High data is a disease that they carry, and it's tracked. It's in the feces. A family takes their dog out in that area. The dog gets in it, and dogs like to roll in that kind of stuff. They come back. They lick the child's face, 2-year-old child, and that child could be infected like that. So that scares me worse than the livestock. Farmers and ranchers will survive.
Morning, Senator. You opened with some numbers from Snowtell. That's useful. My question is, Snowtell has proven itself to be sort of a party line in a digital communication age, and there's other technology now, and given the importance of the management of the water that we have and what we might have, is there any discussion in the legislature or in state government about maybe changing to like a LiDAR technology on the production of numbers on the snowpack and that sort of thing?
There's some groups that are doing that, some private groups that are doing that right now. But the USDA is, they've done SNOTEL for 30, 40 years. So, they're slow to change. But there's some radar systems, actually, there's one being put in Gunnison, as I understand, up there, that actually will measure the moisture the entire region rather than just the SNOTEL site. So, it's kind of a crapshoot when you get the SNOTEL. But it's the best numbers we have at the time. But there is a possibility.
Hi, I'm Janet Chapman, and I'm interested in your approach to climate change, supporting renewables versus oil, gas, and coal.
Well, I am an all of the above energy. I have done several bills in regards to renewable. I ran legislation to capture the methane gas. I've worked on several solar projects. But the fact is, this week, XL had rolling brownouts because of lack of natural gas. They had to shut the gas off to some people because they didn't have it.
So they didn't have it.
They didn't have it. So we are a carbon-based society. We are not going to change that in 5 to 6, 7 years. We put, the goal is to put 1 million electric cars on the streets of Colorado. But I can't drive one. It won't get me to Denver. I gotta stop and charge it. So I'm all in favor of that, but I think we have to move, be pragmatic about it and move in that direction. I think it is the future. But to say we are going to go totally renewable in a drop-dead date. I have friends in California. You know what the first thing they do when they move to California? They buy a generator. They buy a generator. Because California is notorious for its brownouts and blackouts. You've also got people say, well, let's get rid of, we were talking about Lake Powell, Lake Mead. Drain the reservoirs. You can't do that, first of all. We need the water and the power production that comes from it. And I think hydro is a great electric producer. We passed legislation in Colorado, and I would love to see the county further invest in their Maverick project using pump back. You gather the reservoir, you fill the reservoir, you drop it through the tubes into the turbines, you create electricity, and you pump the water back into the reservoir. And if we don't have that bucket to hold that water at times, I speak often at a lot of the colleges and stuff, and they're all telling me, well, we don't want a reservoir, we want rafting, we want rafting. Well, I said the first thing you need to do is read the book or watch the movie or Centennial. Why do we have the Gunnison Tunnel? We have the Gunnison Tunnel because the Uncompahgre River was dry by July. We could not sustain this valley on the water from the Uncompahgre Valley. We could not sustain this valley without the storage facilities above it. I think it's a matter of being pragmatic.
Good morning, Senator. Joe Carabetta. Last night I was bored
I don't do that.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I was on the Secretary of State's site, and I noticed that they haven't updated the voter statistics, I'll call them, for the new districts. And now we're just mere months away from caucus and county caucus and state conventions and all. When is that gonna be done, or is there something that I'm not aware of? Thank you.
Well, I wasn't aware. I know they take the numbers, they have the numbers. They have the numbers, but I don't know what they are. I know the registration politically is the major parties, Republicans and Democrats. The registration is defining. The new majority is the unaffiliated. But they've got the numbers. I'm not aware that they're not.
Precincts that are coming out. The local precinct, which is really what you're talking about, talking caucus, that information is coming out, I think, this week. Yeah, they actually have the precinct map that has to get approved.
Okay.
The Secretary of State does.
Secretary probably doesn't have that yet.
Your county clerk is coming out.
Oh, county clerk, okay.
County clerk sets the precinct, well, the county sets the precinct. So that's being done, that's been done. And as far as I know, the map is drawn, but I think it has to be approved, I think it's supposed to be approved this week.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
Okay, Rob, over here.
One more question.
Going to digress a little bit. You mentioned natural gas, and it seems like over the past year, the government seems to be at war with natural gas. The country's flush with it, but yet it doesn't seem to be part of our energy plan.
Well, the only thing I would disagree with you on is you said seems. I was on a renewable energy bill last year with Chris Hansen, and Chris Hansen is a nuclear engineer and wickedly smart, and we were working on a bill together, and it ended up attacking the natural gas industry. And Chris came to me and said, "This bill's got out of my control, and I don't expect you to stay on this bill." I got on the bill because of methane capture, but I ended up getting the amendments that I wanted for the methane on the bill, but I ended up pulling out of the bill and voting no, removing my sponsorship. And you can only do that on third reading, so once your name is on a bill, it's all the way through to the third reading. But there is a desire to certainly eliminate natural gas in Colorado in the next 6 years. I don't think that's possible, and I think situations as we had last week where they had to shut the gas off in some places, I think that will change that. But that is an attitude. The General Assembly is made up of everyone, and I call them amateurs in a lot of fields, but this is brought by activists that are totally climate activists that have not looked at the total picture. Can we reduce it? Probably, but coal was first. Actually, nuclear was first in Colorado. We had a plant that really never operated, and then coal. And as we know right now, nuclear station is gone. It has been dismantled. Craig and Hayden are on the blocks, coming the end of this decade. But we haven't put together the pieces to do it. We did run some legislation, I ran this with Hanson, putting us into stabilizing the grid and tying us in with other states, that so we don't rely on just what's produced in the state. But that's long term.
What are we going to rely on?
What?
What are we going to rely on? Why, it seems like we will become
You're
California.
going to rely on gas. It's not possible to do what you want to do.
So please join me. Let's thank Senator Don Coram for being here this morning. I'm sure if any of you have continuing questions, Don will be here for a minute or two getting out the door, and he loves to talk, so.
Judy always speaks to me.
Join us next week. We will have, Matt just had to leave early, but next week will be Montrose County School District talking about the new Outer Range program. And if you're like I am, I kind of went, what's that? Well, it's outdoor education for children. And Matt was just telling me he had to learn how to snowshoe last week because he had to take a group of kids out on snowshoes. So join us next week for that program. Again, if you want our email list, let one of us know. Okay? Thank you.
very much.
Thank you, sir.